Hey everybody, it's Greg Rice. We're here at Nexus Property Management's headquarters in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and we have with us today broker-owner of Hennessy Property Management, Amelie Hennessy.
Nice to see you, Greg.
Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Amelie, long story, but we were introduced because she used to be Nexus's client, okay, our biggest client, as a matter of fact.
I didn't know that. Okay. Interesting.
And Amelie decided, you know what? I see the success of property management. I'm going to do it on my own. And she did, in fact. So you opened up your office.
I did.
In East Greenwich.
Yes.
And how's it going?
It's going great.
Everything's running smooth?
Everything's going great. Pandemic and all, it's going well. I mean, it has its kinks, you know, just like most businesses do, but I would say that given the situation that we're in, we're doing great.
As would I agree.
Yeah, it's a good way to say it.
We probably sent 10 more demands compared to usual?
I think we probably sent 4 more than usual, so if you put it to scale, I think we're probably in the same boat.
We don't think that the effects are going to start to ripple out until maybe September, October, November.
I think now-ish, if this month is an indicator of what's to come with the demands. Right. But we didn't expect it to hit. We didn't expect the negative impact to start in April. Like, we kind of knew it would take some time.
Right.
And I think if we're going to have some negative impacts, it's going to start now. Possibly into the next few months. Hopefully not, but it will be time now.
For sure. And what would you say, like, when you started the business, right? What were your thoughts about it, and, like, what are some realities that happened pretty soon that you're like, oh, shit, I didn't even realize this was a thing, or, I didn't even think about doing that. Like, what are some of the things that you learned pretty quickly?
So I had, 40-some units with you guys?
Yeah.
So I had a good grasp of owning real estate and managing real estate because I was doing it myself before I hired you guys. Mm-hmm. So I kind of thought I knew most of what it entailed and all that stuff. I think the hardest part is finding that balance between keeping everybody happy, tenants, owners, myself. Mm-hmm. So for all 3 of us to be high-fiving each other is nearly impossible.
For sure.
Someone's always not happy. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest challenge that I didn't really foresee going into it is stuff like that, because you're dealing with tenants, you're dealing with owners, and they usually have different views on how things should be done, and then here you are trying to insert some kind of law and order between the two, so it's a little tricky sometimes. And then you're trying to also do your job, and so you're a third party trying to kind of make it all work. And we do mostly residential management, just like you guys do, and you know, residential is tough because it's people's homes. You're dealing with, you know, people's lives, and they're, you know, they can be very sensitive to certain things, and it's having to massage certain situations while remaining kind of firm and doing the job that you're hired to do.
So a common problem we get is tenants want maintenance done, and then the owner's like, no.
No.
So how do you marry the you know, you have an alliance to the tenants and the owners.
Right.
And yourself. How do you marry those in an instance like, I'll give you one. A tenant had a ceiling fan that was wobbling. So it's not like a safety issue, but it's annoying. Especially this time of year when you're keeping your fan on.
All day long.
You want to sleep, and it's just click, click, click. So the tenant says, can you come in and, like, tighten it or fix it or whatever? And the owner's like, no. What would you do?
So I would fix it. I wouldn't seek approval for something like that.
Okay.
We have like a dollar amount threshold for which, so if we're under X amount of dollars, we're going to go in and fix it. If we're over X amount of dollars, we'll get the owner's approval. 90% of the time, we're under that threshold, and I will just go fix it.
Just do it.
I would just do it. I mean, I use my own judgment. You know, if the tenant wants a new paint color in the kitchen, no. without approval, but if
Right.
something like a fan, I would go and fix it. And if the owner has something to say about it, I would probably just, kind of reassure them that, first of all, it's not going to cost you a ton of money, and you're just keeping your tenants happy. Like, to me, that's a small cost
Happiness.
to keep the peace. Then I don't have to hear about it. Then I don't have to, and then we're done.
What is the biggest mistake that owners make?
Not wanting to spend money where they should. I think what happens is when owners hire property managers, it's a great thing for them because they're kind of inserting that buffer between them and the tenants, and it allows them to be very objective, which is great because that's what we want. That's what we're here for, is to take the headache out of their hands, and they pay us to kind of deal with it.
Yes.
Just handle it, whatever it is. But with that buffer, sometimes they can kind of start to think a certain way or do certain things that they wouldn't normally do if they were right in front of the tenant. And so they're putting us in between to have to send some kind of message to the tenant. And sometimes, I don't agree, and I won't do something that I don't necessarily agree on, from the owner's. But I will always explain the reasoning, because at the end of the day, we're the professionals. We are the ones that know best. And back to, asking a mistake is, I think that in the beginning when we started managing for owners, so I always managed my own properties. I had no problem handling my own tenants. But
Which is huge.
Which is, yes, it was a great, I knew a lot going in. But then there's that owner piece, and number one, it's understanding that you are the professional, you are the one that's hired, and you can't always just do what the owner says. You have to advise them a little bit. You are an extension of the owner, no doubt. It is their property at the end of the day. If they want to do nothing, fix nothing, it's your property. But I'm here to advise you and let you know, here's what you should do, and a little bit of money here is going to save you a tenant or money in the long run, and that's what we're hired for. So I think it's understanding that, again, we know what we're doing, and you just have to let the owners know. You got to trust in the process.
Which is hard, because some of them say, oh, I could do it in 2 hours. It took you 4 hours?
It did.
But I got a buddy that used to blah, blah, blah.
Right. And here I am now, contracted
Exactly.
by you.
Exactly.
So how was that working out for you before with your buddy?
Bingo.
And I've gotten to the point, like we kind of talked about earlier too. It's like, okay, you think you can get this $500 job done for $300? By all means,
Go ahead.
do it. I'm not, and the way that we structure our prices and our services, it's similar to you. It's a la carte. I don't force you to use me for maintenance. I don't force you to use me for maintenance or leasing or. That's basically the two things.
Yeah.
So,
even evictions you could throw
evictions,
in there too.
yeah, you could do that too. So it's, this is what I do full time, and obviously the people that we manage for, it's usually not what they do full time. So they're usually working somewhere else, and this is something they're kind of doing on the side or whatever. So I have the network of vendors. I have in-house maintenance. I can get it done for you. But again, if you think you can do it better, by all means, your property.
Managed.
By you.
So
Yeah.
jumping around a little bit, tell us about before property management. So what was your first job ever?
Oh, my first job ever. All right, well, I've been babysitting since I was 10. But on the books job, I was 14, and I started in a grocery store, because I think that's the youngest you could be to work in a grocery store as a cashier. 14? Yeah, something like that.
And was that in Rhode Island? Or
In Mass. So I came from Mass, and so my mom it was like I worked like a Sunday shift, like, 1 to 4. And my mom would drive me and pick me up, and every Sunday.
Where in Mass are you from?
Worcester area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you outskirts of Worcester?
Yes.
Like
Suburb.
Boylston?
Yes, precisely.
I don't know how I know that.
Yeah, I know, that's weird. Yes, that's where
So
my
you
parents
grew
live.
up there,
Yes.
and then you worked in the grocery store in high school, I imagine.
Yep, I
All
did
through?
that. I did, I started there, and then I worked at CVS as a cashier. I worked in a nursing home as an activities director.
Wow.
That was all through high school, and then I worked in a lab. Summer, I always had a job. If
What
I
kind of
could
lab?
fit, like a, just a regular laboratory, just piping stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
In Westboro, I don't know. Don't ask me what they did. They just
You were in a
mixed
lab
some
with a
stuff.
coat
With a
and-
coat, I worked second shift. It's actually
Wow.
horrible that I don't remember what I was doing, and there's a reason that
Wow.
I'm no longer there. But
So post lab coat, you were
I went to PC,
okay.
and then I started college. So I always had a job since I could work, because I always wanted to work, always.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted my own mall money. I needed my own
Yep.
money.
Mad money.
That's it. Yeah.
So in college, did you?
I had 2 jobs in college. I went to PC. I started there. I worked in the postgraduate office as one job, and then I also cold called the alumni for donations.
Which is always fun.
It wasn't bad. It sounds horrible. You got a few hang-ups, but I think I was still doing it at a time where like the house phone rang and it was normal for people to answer.
Wow.
So it wasn't, like now I would never call
So,
someone's
hey,
house phone.
you owe us $100,000 in student loans, but
But could
For-
you donate another 100
another 100.
for us here? Yeah,
What was the biggest donation you ever got?
probably like 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of successful people coming out of PC. Like it wasn't hard,
Yeah.
it was fine. But and you'd ring the bell when you got a donation, and like the supervisor would come over, the whole thing. It was cute.
I went to Johnson Wales, right? So that was in 2009, and PC was not our rival, but partying. They were our rivals. We
Interesting.
would live in their turf. So we would live on Huxley or Pembroke or
Yeah.
Oakland,
Yeah.
and that was mostly PC students.
Yeah.
And us Johnson Wales folk would under Bob McCann's 02908
Yep.
club, we'd come in and we'd live there.
Yep.
And I remember the PC kids were always a notch above us. And the reason I know this because my girlfriend lived on the 3rd floor and PC kids lived on the 2nd floor. And it was a Sunday morning and they'd been partying all night. So we walked down the stairs and the PC kids' door was wide open. Just open.
Just an open door policy.
20 people just sleeping.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, these kids go hard and they're different.
My experience, and this is my experience, I had a great high school life. I had a lot of fun in high school. We weren't crazy, but I went to Catholic school.
Yep.
So we were crazy for Catholic school kids, which really is saying absolutely nothing. But when I got to college, I knew no one. I went to school in Worcester, Mass. So PC, was 45 minutes away. It
Yep.
wasn't far, but it was Rhode Island. It
Yep.
might as well have been, hours away. It was different enough. And I actually hated the college life. And the more I talk to people about this, I realize it's like people had one or the other. They either had like an awesome high school life
Yes.
and they hated college, or they hated high school and loved college.
Yes.
So for me, college was like, when I went to a good school and the people were pretty much all the same, and it was not that fun. We did the whole going out 5 nights a week and did show up to class and did all that, but it still just, I don't know. I didn't feel it. And I feel like a lot of the people I went to college with did not have that good high school life, and so they just went hard.
Too hard.
Too hard. And I just was like, wow, is this, I remember my first beer,
Yeah.
It's like you get there and they're like, these kids are
Wild in
drinking
the
for
streets.
the first time. It's a lot of because it is PC and you get some, a certain type of person, and it's a lot of people that I think were free for the first time.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm speaking from my experience. I don't
I
know.
feel the same way. I feel like high school I had more fun than in college.
I did too.
And college, I think it was good that way because I spent more time focused. I worked at the gym. I got good grades. I did an internship with the state police.
Yep.
I just did more, I could say, productivity.
Yes.
But if I was having too much fun, I'd probably be like, the internship, the job, I'll just call dad. Like,
Right.
so I felt like
Yeah.
it kept me grounded that I had fun earlier rather than later.
Yeah. I just got bored. It was like, you know, and I had a boyfriend too, so I think that, and he didn't go there obviously, so I think I don't know, it just wasn't this wild journey that everybody's like seeking, I think.
Yeah.
And I had like, my GPA wasn't that's the thing, I had no excuse, like, we partied, but I think I just didn't do anything for no good reason. And my parents are just writing checks and
Yeah.
meal plans, and I will say I used to feel sick over that because I would like not wake up to go to Western Civ, which was
Right.
like a big PC thing, and it was the most god awful class you
Yeah.
could ever, but you
Yep.
had to take it, and I would like do the math in my head. And so back to like I always worked because when I went to the mall, I always wanted to spend my own money, and I hated just like taking money from my parents and
Yep.
blowing it on a bunch of junk I didn't need. So I was always like calculated with my money, and then so, like the same thing with PC. Like I was lucky, you know, my parents could pay for me to go to school, and like I'd be sitting there like sleeping my classes away and doing the math. I'm like, God, $500 here. I just slept through it,
Yes.
and I felt sick over it.
Yep.
And it was like the fun times just didn't outweigh any of that.
That's because you have a conscience.
I used to.
And then you became a property
And then I
manager.
started a
It's all
property
over.
management
It's
business, and
all
now I've got
business.
nothing.
So what about after PC?
So after PC, okay, so I went to PC. I actually transferred out after my first year.
Oh,
Was going to get to that. So I'm originally from Canada. My parents divorced when I was 8, and my mom moved to the Boylston, Worcester
Got it.
area. My dad always stayed in Canada. So my dad was still living there. I was going to PC. He actually ended up getting sick, and I hated PC, and it was just kind of this weird thing where, you know, in Canada you can get a college degree for like, you know, $8,000 total, where I think at the time I was going to PC, I want to say it was like $33,000 a year. No scholar, like I got in for nothing. So I ended up going to Canada, and then I did my entire bachelor's degree in 2 years. Started over. Of course, none of my Western Civ credits
Right.
transferred. It was just like a year we just were going to put behind us. Yeah, none of it transferred. And I went to college outside Montreal in Sherbrooke, and I did my whole bachelor's degree in 2 years. It was 2 years like nonstop, just 6 semesters, right? Is that what it is? I just went 2 years nonstop, no summers off, nothing. But I was like at that point, let's get this over with.
yeah.
Like, I'm
So you
over it.
caught up the time that they took.
So
away
I
from
actually
you.
graduated a year early for my
Wow.
age group because I did 1 year at PC and then 2 years, and so I didn't do like the 4th year. So whatever, I did that, and then I started working for Fidelity right away. I graduated in September. I started with them like a few weeks later
In Providence.
in Marlborough, Mass. They had an
Oh.
office there because I was
Okay.
still in like the Worcester area.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've been working. So I never stopped. I graduated like 1 week after graduation. I started working, and I had a finance degree. I got like a job there, you know, in like retirement, 401ks and things like that. And I learned a ton. It was a great thing because I was like 22 and learning about 401ks, educating other people
Yeah.
about like I would have never known about a 401k. Like I was educating 40-year-olds about needing to put money away for retirement, people that had like nothing put away, you know. And I'm like, what do you want to work till you're
Ever.
till you're 80, bagging groceries? It was awful. So anyways, it was good because I was educating them on that. I educated myself. I had a 401k through Fidelity, and putting stuff in different mutual funds and learning, you know, different
Wow.
investment strategies, and it was great.
And how did you get that lined up? I mean, that's a pretty good gig
Yeah.
for entry level college grad.
I was always like on the hunt. I knew I always wanted to work. I wasn't gonna, you know, take time off after college and, you know, waitress for 6 months. I was just gonna, because if I don't get into an office now, I know I saw it happen with many other
Yeah.
people, is you take a quick 12-year break.
Yep.
And so I looked online, you know, I was just searching. I had my resume, I'd put it out there, and I just interviewed with them. I knew Fidelity obviously had a good name, and it was a big company, and to this day, an awesome company to work for. Like, they treat their employees amazing. There was a gym in the building and a huge just this beautiful campus.
Wow.
It was perfect. So I jumped right in.
Why'd you leave?
So I started in Marlboro, and then they were opening a new office in North Carolina. And they offered me this bonus and this to move to North Carolina to help open up the new office. So I was 22. And I had nothing going on. I'm like, why the hell not? It's perfect. So me and a couple other people from the Marlboro office moved down there. We rented an apartment in Raleigh, still with the same company, and that was like college all over again. Because now we were like a bunch of kids making money, working. It was
22.
awesome. Yeah, we were like, we thought we were like killing it. And we actually were, if you think about it. We had we had our rent, we split 2 ways, and we were doing really well. And then until one day I got up to go to work and took a pregnancy test and found out I was pregnant from my husband that I'm still with. I was with him.
Shout out to Josh.
Shout out to Josh.
And maybe we could talk about Josh later.
Sure, we can talk about Josh.
Josh is a cool dude.
So, just so I didn't get pregnant in North Carolina. It had been in the making. So Josh, who was my boyfriend at the time, was playing professional hockey.
Yep.
So he was...
For the...
he was drafted by the San Jose Sharks. At that time, he was with the Ottawa Senators. He played with Boston and Providence, the Binghamton, New York, Ottawa organization. So he's been all over, and Europe, which
legit guy.
Get to. But at that time, he was doing training camp, and that was the whole thing. So he was doing his career. I was doing mine, because, I'm going to work and build my own career and so on. And I decided he was in Ottawa for training camp. I was in North Carolina doing my thing, and then so I had to call him when he was about to get on the ice, and be like, you got a minute? He was like, no, and I was like, all right, call me later, no big deal. And so anyway, so that happened, and I was like, you know what? I'll stick it out. I'll stay here. I'm working and blah blah blah. And then like 1 month in, I was like, I can't, because it was like everybody was partying, and I was in North Carolina with no one, and so then I left Fidelity and met him. So he had gotten sent down to their affiliate team, which was in Binghamton, New York, from Ottawa. And so I moved in with him then, and
the rest is history.
The rest is a part of the history, yeah.
So what year was that did you move to Binghamton?
2007.
Okay. So in 2007, you're in Binghamton now,
Binghamton, New York.
Which is not Raleigh, North Carolina.
No.
It's completely, as you say, that rural BS, maybe.
Yes, it's the area. I have a soft spot for Binghamton because I lived there but it's you felt like you were a good 20 years behind there. There was like a certain...
Like the old school town?
Yeah, it's very old school. I don't think they get a lot of people that move there. I think most people, they don't have a lot of fresh blood. We met some amazing people that I still talk to this day. But yeah, so coming from like a city kind of environment, it was a bit of a rough transition.
What'd you do in Binghamton? Because Josh is probably practicing.
Josh is practicing
blah,
and
blah.
playing. So our first apartment that we got was, well, first when I moved in with him, he was already living with like 2 other guys. So here comes the pregnant girl. We finished out that season. We had a bedroom, and everybody else had their own room. And so that was tough. And then we had our first daughter that spring. So then once we had her in the spring, so that following season, we went back to Binghamton. We were home for the summer, and then we rented an apartment right above a sports bar. Literally, like, above the sports bar.
I always wondered about people that live above bars.
So let me tell you about...
Do you hear the shit all day? Like, the boom, boom, boom.
So it was a sports bar, so there wasn't, like, a ton of bass. It was more like screaming on a Sunday afternoon when football was on.
Like Karens?
No, just people like like a
cheering?
play happened. Everybody at the same time, like all at once. It's like 3, and you're like, whoa, what, so
Must have scored.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So you'd hear the, or the whatever the cheers were. But we had found it on Craigslist because I think that was the only place in that area. Again, who's looking for apartments in an area that's not, like very city-ish or whatever. So We called the landlord and we went. It was a brand new. It was actually like an old building, and he had just redone it. It was nice, but it was like I remember thinking, God, this street it's a little shady. I was a little nervous, you know. And so he owned the bar downstairs, and he owned the building, and so he was renting the apartment, and we took it, and it actually ended up being great because him and my husband. Let me back up. It was great for my husband because he could just walk down the stairs on Sundays or, you know, whenever there was a game on and watch the game. And him and the owner became good buddies, and we're still friends with them now. So we lived above a bar.
How long?
With a baby. So we actually rented that apartment that season, and we paid for it through the summer because, you know, the season ends, we move home, we come back, you know, for the following hockey season. So we were in that apartment for 2 years, 2 hockey seasons, but we would just keep it for the summer, and so we had a place to come back to.
Do you think that living above a bar is something everybody should do at one time in their life?
Not with a baby.
But in general, like...
I mean, no, I think you can probably survive without doing it.
But is there so many... Is it cool to an extent? It's like you got to do it at least for a year.
I think living in close proximity is... I don't know. I mean, not for me. It was kind of like a very... local sports bar, which is fine. It's great. Binghamton locals, great people.
So Binghamton, you left there in what year? It was
All right. So now we're in 2010. We had our second daughter 2010 again, right after the season. At that point, my husband was offered a contract in Switzerland, a hockey contract in Switzerland. So in July of that year, so my second daughter was born in April. In July, we all packed up and we moved to Switzerland, Lugano.
Wow.
Beautiful place. Paradise.
Interesting.
Yeah. What an opportunity. We went there, the team, we had this house, like, overlooking the mountains, and it was unreal. Snow, palm trees at the bottom, like, teal water. We were in Lugano, right south, like, we could go to Lake Como in Italy after dinner. Like, you just had to drive over the bridge. It was unreal. We were 26, like, and we knew how great it was, but looking back, I'm like, we didn't know how great that was. It was unreal. We were basically in Italy. So we drove, like, Milan was 45 minutes away. Lake Como was right over the bridge, or over the border, I should say. Everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did your parents say? What did Josh's parents say? Like, oh, we're going to take our beautiful little newborn, and we're just gonna
take your grandkids away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we did. I think they saw it as they were sad for sure. But you know, it was always like it was sad when we went to Binghamton and left everybody. But you know, they could visit. It was a 4-hour car ride. They'd love to come visit for weekends, and we'd go to games and do whatever. Europe was a lot tougher, but it was such a good opportunity for us to travel.
Yeah.
With 2 small kids, which we would have never done. So yeah, they were sad, but we'd come back. But our families got to come visit. Each of our sets of families, his parents, my parents, got a chance to come visit, and it was awesome.
And how long was that?
We were there for 1 season. So when I say a season, it's like July to April-ish. So we were always home, you know, for summer, like spring, summer. After that season, we came home. Josh went to, he played for the P. Bruins for a year. Sorry, it's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah,
we came home from Sweden. Then he signed a 1 year with Boston and Providence. He was mostly in Providence, so we were renting in Seekonk, Mass. Loved that little townhouse. It was cute. It was just us. And then we did that season there. I went back to Fidelity because there was my first opportunity to go back to work because we were in one place. I went to Smithfield. I called up some of my old bosses and I was like, hey, I'm here. And I knew there was a Smithfield office. So, you know, what do you got for me? They hired me. I went back in. So I did 1 hockey season while he was playing in Providence. I was back at Fidelity in Smithfield, which was great. I loved it. You know, it was nice to go back to work. Just being at home with kids is hard. And I've always wanted to work, so it was good for me to just get out there and do something. So we did that for another season, and then he went to Russia for 2 years after that.
And you stayed?
And I stayed. So once we knew he was going to Russia, we decided we were going to buy a house, because at that point, we were renting in Seekonk, but, it was kind of temporary. And then when he signed to go to Russia, then we were like, all right, well, we might as well now buy a house, because I'm not going anyway.
Yeah.
So the first season he left, we found a house in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, where we live now.
Wow.
I was just kind of looking online, and I'd found this house, and his family's from the South Shore of Boston area, and so originally we wanted a house in that area, but we needed something turnkey, and the market there, it was just insane. You could buy a $600,000 house, but it would need a whole new kitchen, and because we were only home for so many months a year, we didn't want to get into a renovation and all that. So I looked online and I found this house in East Greenwich, and I'm like, all right, so this is the house that we want, just on the South Shore. And we kept looking and looking and couldn't find it, and eventually it was like, well, why don't we just move to East Greenwich? And we started asking, the two people we knew from Rhode Island were like, what's East Greenwich like? And they're like, oh, it's awesome for kids, and the schools are great, and blah, blah. And we were kind of like, yeah, let's do it.
Which is true.
It is very true. But at the time, our kids were little, so it's like you're not thinking that they're eventually going to be in school, because you don't think that day's going to come for some reason. But so anyway, we were like, well, screw it, we'll go. So then I was there for 2 years. That's exactly what I said, screw it.
Screw
it. We shall go. And we went. And so we bought the house in East Greenwich and been in Rhode Island sort of since.
Yeah. And then when did we cross paths? What year was that? 2013?
I was pregnant with my twins. So for those of you who are following, now we're on to 4. We had 2 kids. I got pregnant with twins. Josh went back to Russia. So now this is his second season in Russia. I guess back to how we started investing in real estate. Before we had our first daughter, we needed a solution to where we were going to live during the off season. So, we rented that apartment in Binghamton during the season, but then when we came home, and home was South Shore Boston, because we just stayed closer to his parents, we needed a place to stay. The summer my daughter was born, we stayed in his parents' house, but we obviously needed a better accommodation for a family. So, but the problem is what are you going to do? Because what are we going to buy a house that we're only going to live in 4 months a year?
Right.
It's going to sit there, and it's what are you going to try to find a tenant for 8 months? It was just kind of messy, and we didn't want to buy a house and just have it sit there for 8 months vacant. So we were kind of looking around at houses in his hometown, and then finally, I think it was his dad that was like, oh, why don't you buy a 2-family and live on one side and collect from the other? And we were like,
that sounds like a dad would talk.
it's such a dad thing, and it sounded so. Why don't you do this? And it sounded so boring to us, who wants? Why would you're expecting me to be smart and do the right thing? That it's not exciting, right?
Not exciting.
And of course,
Screw
it. Yeah. So, but we were we let the idea settle. Because of course, it's the kind of stuff, and I notice now with real estate investing, it's what our parents always wanted to do, and they couldn't do it. It's this big thing, they could just never quite do it. So I think it was
Your parent voice is awesome.
I know, and that's not at all what Josh's dad sounds like, which is the worst.
He's gonna send a message.
He doesn't
I
do
don't
this.
sound like
yeah,
this.
he doesn't flex when he talks either.
But that's how you interpret the talking.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. He's actually the most mellow. I mean, if you saw him, anyway. So he's like, hey, the smart thing to do would be, in your situation, buy a 2-family, live on one side, have one side pay your mortgage, and there you go. And then you're, now that's my mom voice. And there you go. And now you're, you get your expenses paid and blah, blah, blah. So we were like, whatever. So we started looking around, and sure enough, we found this really nice 2-family in a very residential single-family neighborhood, had a big yard, and it, it didn't look like a, because, the thought of living in a, I was just not above that, but I was just kind of like, I want my own house.
I mean, you put in your time. You lived above a sports bar.
I paid my dues. I lived above a sports bar.
You shared with hockey guys while you were expecting.
Precisely. So all I wanted was my own dwelling at that point. So, so we found this really nice 2-family. Top bottom, and we took the top then we were like, okay, we could live at the top and whatever, and we did, and we bought it, moved somebody on the first floor, kept the second floor, and we were like, wow, this will actually like keep eyes on the house. You know, you've got somebody kind of watching it, and sure enough, like they said, you had their rent was covering the mortgage, and so like all of a sudden, like financially, it was making sense, and we were like, huh, okay. Rentals. And so I managed my first property, which was my own. I had
That was in
a
East
wonderful
Greenwich?
tenant. That was in Rockland, Mass, South Shore.
Oh.
So I was backing up to how we.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So we were 23, and that's how. So after that, we'd go back to Binghamton, and we'd go to Europe. Like that was kind of like our home base at that point. In between that time and the time we bought our first house in East Greenwich, every year. So finally, it clicked. This is like a real thing. Like you can live and you can get your expenses paid for, and then it's almost like you're living for free. And then the following year, we bought another 2-family. Because then we're like, wouldn't it be crazy if we bought another one and we just rented that one out? You know, it's like, whoa. And we did that. And then the year after that, another one. And so then we had like 6 units. And I was like, wow, you know,
America.
It's crazy, America. It's crazy how you can do that here. So we did that. Because you were asking me about property. Okay, so now we're accumulating. So now every year we're buying another multi. Okay. Now I have maybe 8, 10 doors. Josh is in Russia. I'm 9 months pregnant with twins, and I'm like managing these myself. By managing, you know, I'm collecting the rent. If they have a maintenance issue,
I'll help you.
Sure. I don't know what I was doing. Who knows? But it was getting handled. And so I'm out to here, and I run into a nightmare tenant in Attleboro, Mass.
It happens.
It was the worst kind of, like everything that could go wrong with it did. It was just that case, terrible. And I was pretty tough, you know, like I stood my ground on a lot of stuff. But then at one point I realized like this woman has been playing this game much longer than me. And she knows what she's doing, and it was, you know, a protected class and a housing. It was like every hurdle, like I felt like I had hit a wall. Meanwhile, at the same time, we're kind of getting the investing game, and we're like getting it. It's like, oh, we just buy, like we're buying income, and we're buying passive income, and it's wonderful, and it works. And he'd be sending me all these listings, you know, from Europe, and he's like, look at this property, and it's like black and white, and this is what it cash flows. And meanwhile, I'm over here like dealing with all of it.
Right.
And I'm like, sell all the shit. I'm like, I can't
Really?
look at another, because when you're in it and dealing with it,
okay.
it becomes very unattractive to you. I'm not like, oh wow, those numbers look great, honey. Let's buy. I'm like, I'm over here dealing with every horrible person on the planet that happens to be renting from me. It was a nightmare, and I was pregnant, and I had 2 kids, and it just wasn't right. And then I finally said to him, I was like, I think I need help. Like, I can't do it myself. I was worn down with this woman. I'd have nightmares about it. I'd wake up, and I'd have emails, like, it was awful. And then enter you guys. So then I, you know, was Googling property management, and in my mind, not knowing, I thought you needed, like, hundreds of units to hire a property manager. Like, I just didn't know. I was like, oh, what, you know, will somebody take on my 10 units? Like, and then I Googled you guys, and I found you, and then I emailed Nick, and he called me like probably that day, and I just unloaded all my problems, and he was like, we'll take them on. And I was like, well, you will? And he did. And
there wasn't problems.
Well, I had that one tenant that had to get evicted.
What house was that? John?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I remember you had another one, and it still had the parchment paper on the floor because it was just refinished. On Hope?
That was a nice place.
I was like, wow.
Well, I never had an issue there, I don't think.
Beautiful.
To this day, I think it's the same 3 tenants that are in there.
Wow.
That is a cash cow, that place.
The same tenants?
Moneymaker, I swear. Yes. We might have switched one. There was somebody with birds in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she's gone.
I remember her. She was nice.
That house is like, that's my golden child. I hear
house.
nothing.
That inspired me to want to get involved with real estate.
Did it?
The granite, the stainless, the wood. I was like...
And we didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This Emily girl, she's like...
She knows what she's doing, for sure.
She's got her shit together.
No, but that was our thing, is we knew we didn't have time to renovate. We didn't have the resources, so we were buying turnkey things. That was our thing.
But you had the income to do so.
Right.
You had the gunpowder to be like, give me something good.
Well, I mean, right. Yes, but we also knew that these properties were going to make money. Like, I was
Yeah.
confident that we were going to be able to rent them, and, you know, you were immediately just buying the income.
Better quality tenants.
Absolutely.
Longer quality tenants, as
Absolutely.
you're saying. And do you remember the first time you came in the office?
I'll never forget it.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do
You
you
had TVs on the wall that weren't plugged in, or monitors that weren't plugged in.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you remember what else happened?
No.
You were sitting at Nick's desk.
Yeah.
Maybe Nick will remember this. And you had just came in, and I was new. I had just started with Nick, maybe a couple months, roughly. And I said, "Do you want a chocolate?" And you were like, "Yeah, I would love a chocolate."
And you didn't have one to give.
No, we had lots of chocolates. We had hundreds of them. So I had a drawer of chocolates, and I pulled out the drawer and I brought it over to you, and you took one, and then I dropped all the chocolates
I don't remember that at all.
everywhere. Hundreds of chocolates everywhere. And there were the bars, like, not the big bars, but like the mini
Fun size.
fun size bars. And I remember like, shit, I just dropped chocolate all over this lady. She's not gonna hire us.
I was so far gone at that point. I didn't give a shit. It's like, who cares?
Sign up.
Here are my keys.
Beat it.
Here's all your problems now. And the great thing about that,
And then you're like, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
The great thing about that was once I handed you all my problems, then, when Josh was sending me listings, like, it got me excited about investing again, because once I could get rid of that headache piece, then it's like, sure, buy this, buy that, this makes sense, this cash flows, why the hell not? Because I'm just gonna, and then we would go from the closing to your office, here's this, here's that, see ya.
Mm-hmm. And then you said, you know what? I want all these problems
And then I
back.
said, you know what, give me, all those keys, why don't you bring them back on
And
this
then I'm
way.
going to take this guy's and girls' problems too, and I'm going to have all my problems
I
here.
want them all back, because now I'm ready for them.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
you see the model and you're like, okay, the problems could be managed in a different way or different processes, and I can handle it without becoming dejected or thinking, fuck the rentals.
Yeah.
Like, you could still be inspired and also handle the issues.
Right, and I think another thing too that happened with that is now by this point, Josh was nearing retirement. So we had you guys manage everything. We were in Europe, we were back and
Right.
forth, we didn't want to deal with it, yada yada. And then his hockey career was coming to an end. And then, at some point, maybe after 10, 12 doors, 20, we were like, maybe when he retires, we can just live off of
The income.
the income. Ooh, like another light bulb that Dad at some point,
Dad.
told us. Dads. Offer the best advice, but never did any of it themselves. But they've got all the answers for us, right? So then that light bulb went off, and then I was like, but then, like, now that we've seen the management thing, like, we can collect on our own, but we can also, because once you've got the system in place, it's like, bring on everybody else's units, because I've already got a network, it's a
Exactly.
well-oiled machine, it's going, so bring everybody else's units on, and then when you're managing for clients, then that's another, income stream, and it's all
Right.
about just different income streams, and then you can make a living.
And you are
I am.
close to your house too. You don't have to drive an
No, I
hour.
could throw a rock to my office.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. I can't imagine driving.
Did you
Far
ever
away.
think, like, I'm going to live in East Greenwich and I'm going to own a business in East Greenwich?
Never. Nor did I ever think I was going to grow up and be a property manager. Because is there anything
More thankless than this.
more thankless or
This is the
less
most-
attractive?
Thankless job.
It really is.
Like, I go home, you probably go home too, and I'm like, wow, I helped 100 people today, and not one of them know that I really directly helped them.
No, 100%. It's playing whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Is all it
And
is.
people
and
don't
not
even
not
know.
one person, and not they don't even know you're whacking moles. You're just it's like literally just boom boom. You're putting out fires all day, and not a thank you to be seen. And that's what we were saying earlier. I'm like, it is such a thankless job, but we're doing it somehow. I don't know. So there's some sick.
Something.
So there's something we're getting out of it, and I don't know what it is, but it's there because you've been at it
Yeah.
for a long time. I've been in some form of managing properties for 12 years, 3 years in East Greenwich, but yeah, you eat a lot of shit sandwiches, that's for sure. But when those thank yous come, far and few, they feel nice.
Do you get client gifts at Christmas?
Not yet.
I've gotten 2.
That's huge. I have never gotten a
Same
gift.
2 guys too.
Nope.
One is Josh Chu, who Josh, growing his career, sent me a Amazon gift card, which I thought was awesome.
Delightful. Yep.
Very nice gift. And then Jesse Mayo, who just opened the Worcester office, and AJ will throw him up on the screen. Jesse sends me a bottle of double filtered Jack Daniels
That's nice.
through USPS. So it comes in like a box, and I'm like, what's this shit? I didn't order anything on eBay. And then I open it, I'm like, oh, it's a bottle of whiskey
That's nice.
wrapped in, like with a bow on it. I'm like, that guy, and he's been doing that since day one. So
That's nice.
a person like him doesn't exist. There's 2 of them, and
Right.
he's one of them.
Right. I've yet to meet them, but yeah.
And now he's opening his own office in Worcester, so he's going to take that same good nature like we have and
Right.
give it to.
I think that's great, and I have no doubt he's going to do well there. It's a
Yeah.
Perfect area.
So it's
Awesome area.
It's rare to see nice people.
It is. But you appreciate, and it's like I always say, so I manage condos too. It's like you're an underpaid attorney,
Yeah.
therapist. You
Mom.
you wear so many hats: financial advisor,
Yep.
real estate advisor. You wear so many hats, and I don't think people truly appreciate the array of wisdom that we have, because we might not be masters at every single one of those things, but we give you a very good overall.
Coverage.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. And again, I think people don't know unless they've maybe been in it. I don't know. But I'm happy to do the job. There's not a ton of people that are doing it or doing it well, and I can see why. It's hard. But yeah, there's something that keeps us going. I don't know what it is. I think it's challenging, and I think, you like a challenge, I like a challenge. But it's hard. It's a very people-focused business, and obviously that's the hardest, and you have your own employees, and, there's roadblocks all over the place.
Every day.
All day.
What
All
do you-
day.
What do you find is the most underappreciated service that you provide, or skill? Like something that you do that you ace, and then people just take it for granted, like, oh yeah, or they'll complain about it, or like, what's that one thing?
I think it's the things that never even get necessarily brought up to the owner. I think there's so much coordination, and there's all the little things that you just handle, and I can't even tell you what they are because I think I do them in my sleep, or not to toot my own horn, but I'm great at multitasking, and I'm constantly just handling things without even knowing I'm doing it. I responded to that person, I got that scheduled, that went to you, you handle this, update this person. And I think it's the coordination of everything that is very important, and it's keeping the cycle going, and when there's broken links in the chain, you're fixing those links real fast to get to and it's doing things efficiently, effectively, and without just keep it going. Just keeping it going, I think, is everything, and not stopping, because you're going to run into issues constantly.
Yep.
So it's okay. All right. So now let's do this, and just keeping the wheel spinning.
And nobody knows that.
They don't know that.
doing
That's
that.
that's the thing. They don't know what goes on behind closed doors. They just get the bills, and they just get this.
And they go, oh, well, I got a guy that does it for that, and you're like,
right, but that was 4 phone calls, and I had to do this, and I had to lose sleep over is that person going to show up and do that for you? And that's the thing. I do wake up in the middle of the night with oh my God, did I update that did I it's it just keeps going and going. We don't shut it off. You can't. There's
True.
too many moving parts.
do you ever take a day off?
Never. Yes, I take a day out. No, I take a day out of
Yes.
I take a day out of not going into the office.
Yes.
I'll go away for 2 days, but am I off? Absolutely not.
No.
Never. I tried it and I can't do it. Because what am I going to do? Put in out of office reply and then
Worst.
walk into 65,000 emails on Tuesday morning? Or would I rather just whack the moles as they come in, because I can do it while I'm on the beach, I can do it at the bar, I can do it at the restaurant while I'm napping. Just
Yep.
handle it as it comes in. To me, is much easier than just saving a huge pile for when I get back. I don't like that. I'd rather just do it.
And then people are usually more pissed off when they're part of the pile.
Right. And people are usually reaching out because it's like some form of an issue, and you don't want to let that stew. Because then when you get back to that issue 2 days later, it's not any better.
Karens.
Now you're having to... Karens. Yes. Yes, there have been some Karens, for sure. Karens are tough.
Did you ever get an owner come into the office confrontationally or pissed off or like, give me my keys, I'm done?
I've been let go by phone.
Yep, us too.
Never a face-to-face. I'm also maybe not in the office all the time, so they might have knocked, wiggled the doorknob.
It's a business.
Is anybody ever here?
We had one lady who I felt she didn't know the business, and we tried our darndest to like educate her.
Explain,
She used to live there. It was a house in Warwick. Like she had attachment, and then we put in these tenants that were like, god awful. Like they fared well in the application. We were like, oh, they make this much. Credit's great. No criminal history. They work. No pets. Like, okay.
Perfect.
Approved.
Right.
And then they turn out to just be, they pay on the 30th day, like before you can file the court. Like they know the system.
That they've been playing the game. They've been playing the game. And I will say that's and I'm glad you said that because, we do our due diligence and we look over applications and we check the income and we check the credit and we check all that stuff. But it's not to say that you're not going to get somebody on paper who's perfect,
right,
who's disrespectful of your property. I think the best way that we should be screening tenants is I think we should go to their property. Like, I would love to do home visits for prospective tenants.
Pre-home inspection.
I'll meet you there to collect your application. Just so, and it sounds counterintuitive because they do everything online, but I want to see how you're living. And they'll tell me everything. All I got to do is poke my head in, look around. 2 seconds, and I'll know exactly what kind of tenant you're going to be.
It's so true. You look at some of these apartments, like you go in for an insurance inspection or whatever that's getting sold, and you're like, you look in and you're like, oh, what does that? Or you look in and you be like, wow,
what a nice.
The dishes are done.
Right.
There's a towel on the rack, like it's somebody lives here and they take care of it.
Like you care about the place. That's awesome. And again, there's people too. Like credit score is tough. Like you try to put like a certain credit score you're looking for, but you also have to look at the credit report because. It's not, I don't know. I like to look at the full picture. And maybe you don't have an 800, but your credit report tells a story. And everybody makes mistakes 10 years ago.
True.
And those people sometimes are the best tenants. So
true.
You have to use intuition, which you can't, you have it or you don't.
Mm-hmm. And most owners think, oh, they don't have a 650 credit score. I'm not accepting them. It's like they're renting for a reason, and this is 3rd floor, slanted ceilings, 850. Like,
right. The place hasn't been painted in 10 years.
Right.
So what their credit score isn't 750. Your house isn't a 650. I mean,
that's a good. I'm gonna make a video about that.
Yeah. But that's, and that's a whole other ball of wax. But
it sounds like you manage property in West Warwick.
No, I do. I have lots of properties in West Warwick.
West Warwick is like, I love it, but it seems like it has the oldest houses on like the planet.
There's a theme for sure.
It's old. It's older than Woonsocket.
It is.
It's older than Pawtucket. Like by 50 years.
Yeah, it could use like a reform, It's just it is what it is. It just No, we've had some great tenants. It's been good. It's been fine. But yeah, I think you asked me a question 20 minutes ago about maybe how you got it. So that was it. So we started investing. We hired you guys. You saved us of all of our headaches. We got excited about investing again. We did. And then we just did it ourselves.
So last week, right, I sent out our quarterly newsletter. You probably got it.
I get both my emails.
Both your emails, personal and professional.
Both.
We spare no harm. We come right after it.
Throw that shit at my face.
Right in your face.
That's it.
So, I sent that newsletter and I made it usually 3 to 4 topics. So I'll do 3 to 4 different accomplishments that we've made in the past 6 months. Months, whatever. So one was Jesse opens an office. The next was interview with Emilio, interview with Mike, and then one of our clients, Hunter, bought a property in Woonsocket, so he had a great return,
Okay.
a good purchase. So this woman who's a client emails me and she goes, Greg, I just saw your newsletter. It's great. And I was like, thanks.
But, yeah, it was a but.
But it was she hit enter like 3 times too.
Capital
so it was like,
but.
But where are the women?
Oh, that's why you asked me on.
Partially.
Oh, to save your image.
No.
Got it.
So I said, Joan, you're right. Where the hell are the women?
Yeah, come on out.
And I talked about it with Nick, and I said, you know what? I just started this show. I just started another show, and I brought in my closest circle, my closest friends. Hey, will you come on the show? Because it's easy. Hey,
Right.
come on in. And then I said to Nick, who should we bring on? Who should be the first woman that we bring on the show? Who's accomplished, who's successful, who's independent, who knows what they're doing? And we both said Emily.
Wow. That's something.
And we both emailed like almost at the same
The
time.
emails hit
So we
and
didn't
bounce
even
back.
know like who was going to say
Yeah.
what.
That's flattering.
It is. Well, it's
That's awesome.
It's
Yeah.
true, and it brings me to my point of you being a woman in this male-dominated industry.
Yeah.
I'm
Very
sure
much
you
so.
deal with like these owners that say, "Oh, I've been doing it for 30 years," or "You see these gray hairs? They're older than you." How do you fight back? How do you combat? And how do you prove your,
My womanness.
well, you're just that you know
Yeah,
what
just-
you're doing.
Yeah. I deal with it. So, I mean, let's face it. Most of our clients, would you say, are middle-aged men?
Mm-hmm.
Right? The average client is a middle-aged man. So it's tough because I don't know how many jobs I didn't get because I'm a woman, because obviously I'll never hear about those. So I think that because I meet all the clients, I send the proposals, I answer all the questions they have. So it's very clear that it's me that is in charge and is going to be dealing with or coordinating the stuff for them. So for them to move forward with me, I assume in my woman mind that they're going to be somewhat okay with that. And it's not about feminism. It's just like it is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's just let's be honest. And again, I think we talked earlier about mistakes, and I think I don't know if it's a woman mistake or me wanting to just in the beginning me wanting to like please clients and kind of do what they want. And I don't necessarily want to intermingle the two, but I think I've just gotten to the point now where I understand that I'm the professional and I have to stand my ground. So when something is questioned, whether it be a bill, a service we provided or didn't provide, something I did that was right or wrong or whatever, I just have to reiterate why I did something. And I think I always do that. I don't back down, and sometimes I hate to say it, I read emails over, like I'll read an email 6 times, and then I'll like show it to my husband, and I'm like, does this
Get a
sound bitchy?
perspective. Oh, okay.
Because it's like I feel like when I say something cut and dry, like I take emotions out of emails all the time. I try to be very black and white. I'll answer your question, because again, God forbid I put an exclamation point or an extra word, like now I'm having an
Or all
emotional.
caps.
Yeah, like now I must be having a meltdown.
Oh.
So I have to be very careful of that, and I always write an email. I'm like, how would like a man respond to this? And there have been times I've been emailed in such a way that I tell myself, I'm like, that person would never have sent that email to a man. Like
Interesting.
they're unloading a little bit more because like they think I can either handle it or I care or I'm not sure why.
Got it.
But so, but yes, I've had some clients definitely try to let me know that they know what they're doing, and I just reassure myself by saying like, here I am, contracted, chosen by you, and I stick by the fact that I know what I'm doing. This is how I'm going to do it. I'll explain to you fairly how I'm going to do things, and if you're not happy, then you, by all means,
Beat it.
beat it. It's tough. But like I said, I don't know all the opportunities I lost because they didn't tell me along the way, you know? So I don't know.
Those are probably opportunities gained. You
Yeah.
don't want to deal with people like that.
Absolutely not. I am all set with that. Real estate investing, like, we're relatively young, right?
Yeah.
Under
Yeah, compared
35, 40, like, you know, and it's kind of like a lot of it, it's these people that have owned these properties for years, and, you know, they're like, you know,
to.
you know, and like, they don't, and like, they know what they're, you know, and it's like, they just think they know everything.
There's like 6 guys I just thought of.
I know, it's all of them. But and that's like and that's another really great point too. It's like these people and again, some of the business that you and I don't even have because these owners are self-managing because they're like, property management, why would I pay for that? And it's like, okay, but here you are, you haven't but here you are, you haven't collected rent in 6 months and your house is falling apart.
And you're renting it for $650.
And you're renting it for $650, it's worth $1,200 and you're not collecting anything. And now you're gonna sell it because you can't deal with it anymore. And so you can't convince those people, but you know, and that's like my biggest, you know, people are like, oh, I only have 3 units, I do that myself, and then here you are on a Sunday afternoon schlepping to North Providence, cutting the grass for your investment property, but you don't mind it, it's fine.
Yeah.
And your wife, she loves doing the books.
Yep.
It's fine, we're good, we don't need property
All
management.
good in North Provolone.
It's all set. Meanwhile, you know, those are the people that, you know, are like, oh, it's COVID, I don't have to collect rents, and like they don't know the ins and outs, and they don't but they think they know. So it's like, okay.
You know who taught me bop it bop?
No,
Nick.
I didn't know that.
Nick's old move was bop it bop. Like he would say that to me, and I was like 22. I was like,
What an old bastard he is.
yeah, what's a bop it bop? But that's bop it bop is a guy, or usually it's a guy, but
It's definitely a guy.
yeah, all right, it's definitely
He's
a
older
guy.
than middle age,
He's like 53 and above,
for sure, 60s.
ready to be retired or is retired,
He wears a button down, but the top shirts are always unbuttoned.
like this.
Yes, but he has a short sleeve and he doesn't have a blazer. And he's just a puppet about.
And he's like, it says like Cranston Country Club or something. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
His son-in-law got him that.
So it's a personality, and that's the point we're trying to make. Is like, there's these guys out there that will insist that they know you know nothing.
I know nothing.
But
What do I know?
They're in your office or they're in my office asking
All the questions.
all the questions.
And the
with
things
a
you
notepad.
say blow their minds. You have an answer to their question. You can see the mind blown. They got a good poker face about it, but you can tell you just like they asked you a question, you answered it just like that. Like what else?
What else do you want?
What else you got? It's nothing. And again, to sell property management, whether it be Nexus or me or anybody else, it's a small fee to pay to have your property properly managed. Right? So, you know, these people that are doing it themselves that lost 1 month's rent would have already paid for you or I 10 times over because we're on top of it. We're collecting rent. We're doing the proper repairs.
Yes.
Without gouging you necessarily. I think that's a really big
True.
thing. It's they're afraid to hire property managers because they're going to get gouged
I'm
and
gonna
I'm
lose
sure
control. And,
right. And I'm sure that some property managers will gouge you, no doubt. Like it doesn't have a great reputation. But you know, we try to be as transparent as we can with billing and you know, all these things and you know, your property will probably be maintained better than it was when you were taking care of it. That's a fair statement.
yes.
We'll probably get you a better tenant. We'll actually go to showings. We're not just going to leave a lockbox on the door. We're not going to advertise on Craigslist.
Right.
I don't know. I don't advertise on Craigslist, but you know, you're paying for a service, and that's what you're going to get. And again, rent increases, huge thing. You know, like how many owners do you take on whose rents are way below market?
A lot.
So you raise them across the board, and now you paid for
Offsets
yourself.
us.
That's it. You know, these people that know it's like the rents. and not to go on a tangent with rent increases, let's forget about COVID, but rents have to go up a little bit every single year.
Just like taxes.
1%,
just like
2%,
water.
just like all my utilities as an
Yep.
owner go up. They're not personal. You know, like I've sent, you know, some of the new owners, I sent rent increases and they're like on the phone, like, what are you doing? I've been a great tenant, man. And I'm like, it's not personal.
Mm-hmm.
Cost of living goes up.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep up with it. So I explain that to them, and then I say, you know what you can do? Go online. You go look for another 1-bedroom apartment with everything included, like the one you have now.
Perfect.
Go find one.
Send me the link.
Send me the link for one that's less than what you're paying or equivalent. And sure enough, they're like, yeah, well, I'll sign the renewal. Yeah, because I'm bumping you a little bit,
And you're still below market.
and you're still below market. It's not personal. It's not meant to offend people, like, just because I don't like you. No, it's just,
Part of the deal.
it is what it is. Like, when I get an increases in my taxes from the city of Pawtucket, I'm not calling them asking what their problem is with me.
You should.
I should probably make a call. But you know what, I write the check and I shut my mouth.
And you deal with it.
Because what other option do I have?
The only other option, and I've done it one time, it was kind of annoying. In Warwick, me and my wife own a house. We bought it for $200,000. And then like 6 months later, we get a bill in the mail that the assessed value is $282. And we're just like, listen,
Here's the deal.
the assessed value could be less than the purchase price, but it can't be more.
Right.
Or it could be equal. 282 is roughly 40% more than what we paid for it 4 months ago.
Inaccurate.
Totally inflated.
Right.
So they said, all right, come to this school and we're going to have this table with different tax assessor negotiators and they'll hear you out. So I got Emilio, again, coming through, to print me out comps
Right.
for what I just bought. And I brought him in and I said, listen, here's 3 houses within a half a mile
Right.
that just went for 200, 210, etc. And I talked to the guy and I said, and he goes, oh, well, you have the finished upper floor. I was like, no, that's an attic.
Right.
Birds live there,
Not me. Yeah.
not me.
Right.
And he goes, oh, okay,
Oh.
I'll fix that.
Knock 80 grand off.
And then your basement, he goes, it looks like you have a bedroom there. I was like, it's a laundry room. Like,
There might
I'll
be a
sleep
mattress,
there
yeah.
if me and my wife get in a fight.
Right.
I'll sleep on the
There's an old mattress down there. For sure.
I'll sleep on the cement.
Right.
So he wipes that away, and then we get it back in the mail, and it says, we've reduced your taxable bill to what assessment?
Whatever you want, 200.
$232.
That's nice.
So it was
That's
like,
a nice 50 grand.
but still, $30,000 more than what we paid for it.
Right. But in this case, the guy didn't look at clearly comps before he sent you your
They
increase.
just send it and hope that people,
Right.
like you
But
said,
we don't
just
throw-
send the check.
We don't throw, darts at the wall hoping something's gonna, we know it's like you're probably $100 below market. We're just trying to bring you up like a little bit so that next year when your next increase comes, it's a little easier because the goal is we want to bring you to market rate.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah. But what you also consider is there's a 6-unit building. Maybe you raise everybody $50. That's $300 in the owner's pocket. He didn't have to raise you $300. He raised you 50, and it's collectively split.
Right.
So it's like less. It's when you live in a multi and you get a rent raise. Usually the other guys or girls did too.
Right.
So it's not as bad as people make it out to think.
Again, at the end of the day, look for another comparable place to live for less money, and if it's worth you moving there,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Because if the market is 800 and I'm just bumping you up to 750 and you have a problem with that, so you can move somewhere else, and then the next person that incoming is going to pay 800
Happily.
happily. It's not a sick game. It's the same as buying and selling houses.
True.
It's no different. But for some reason, when it comes to rentals, it's like it hits everybody a little different.
Yep. So no tenants have come to your office, and like
No,
we had a tenant.
I saw that. damage some stuff in here?
Well, not only that, the woman came in, she was getting evicted for non-payment of rent, meaning she didn't pay her rent. And we are the big bad wolf.
Of course.
So she
Always.
went to Mick, our leasing director's desk, and threatened his being, his safety, his life, his everything, and ultimately hit a computer screen.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
And it flew 10 feet into a window, and like we
What
had
an arm.
she could have played with Josh, like
Rugby? Like what?
professional hockey. She was strong, and she hit that computer and it just floated into the distance. And then we asked her to leave. She went out to her car. It's all on video, and that happens. Okay, that is somebody
Right.
who is irrational,
Yes.
not thinking clearly, and
Absolutely.
displacing anger on the mirror is where you should be displacing that anger,
Absolutely.
not us.
Right.
And another tenant came in, had a gun.
Ooh.
So I'm sitting down. This was early on in my career. Here, we evicted him and his girlfriend. He moved out. The girlfriend was still there. We were trying to get her out. So he saw that the girlfriend was still there, and that we were playing favorites. That you can let her stay,
Like you do.
but I have to leave. And he had his gun in his sweatshirt like this.
And you're like,
And I'm like,
sir.
how can I help you? And this is a gun to me. Meaning I can get shot.
Right. I mean, you know, this is already a loose cannon. You don't know.
So I just have to play it cool and be like, listen, man, we're going to be getting her out soon, probably tomorrow. This is nothing personal.
Right.
This is an eviction because you guys didn't pay for 4 months. And he goes, yeah, well, you know, she's still there and you guys are playing games. And it's like, we don't have time for games.
Right.
That's
And it's the
point.
owner's decision, really.
That's the other point, is we're going on somebody else's
Right.
decision.
Yeah. But we're the bad. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you're the bad guy.
So if you could get out one final message to the folks at home, what would it be?
The folks that own investment properties.
Any folks.
My whole thing with everything is like, just don't be an asshole. Like, can we just? It doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, creed, color. Like, just everybody, just don't be an asshole.
Be kind.
Just be kind.
I interviewed Dan Balkin last week, closing attorney, or closing agent, technically not an attorney, and he said the same exact thing. He said, why can't we just make it easy for everybody?
Yeah. Just be kind.
I feel you're kind.
I can be. No, I am. I'm just.
Yeah, you're fair and you're firm.
I'm fair and I'm firm. You have to be. 'Cause that's what, again, that's kind of what our job is, you know? They pay us to do the right thing.
And then they throw computers at us.
And then we get the monitors. Yeah.
Cool. Well, great time, great interview.
Yes, thank you.
If the folks at home want to contact you, how should they do so?
They can go on our website, hennessypm.com.
We'll put that on the
Yep.
screen.
I think that's a good way to start. Or
Yeah.
email us, info at
You mean they can't
hennessypm.
come to your house and have dinner?
I'd prefer not. Let's start with an email.
Sounds good.
And see.
Cool, Emily.
So
Thanks
nice
again.
to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you
Thank
said,
you for having me.
how are we going to do an hour and a half? And you
I
just
know.
banged it out.
I know. That's a lot.
It goes quick.
It does go quick.
So, again, Greg from Nexus, Emily from Hennessy Property Management, your property managed.